want you to see this. Allow me to be your eyes.
Freaks of the Vine, a controversial podcast answering tough questions regarding issues of the day from a practical biblical world view.
Welcome to Freaks of the Vine, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad that you could join us here tonight. To my left is Mr. Gage on the board.
Hello.
To my right is Mr. Zach on the microphone.
You're going to keep this up for a while. Hello.
And also to my right is Miss Kay.
Hello.
And I am Patrick. And tonight we venture into another wild episode of Freaks of the Vine.
You're like Michael Scott's California cousin.
An Office reference. I love it.
The most goofy, I love it, Dad.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, maybe we can surprise everybody with one more voice every time. I just have to be careful because sometimes these voices I used to do are not really appropriate for radio now.
That's sad.
Yeah.
How jokes and just playing around and being goofy is offensive.
You have to be really conscious.
Literally the most offensive things now are not, such as glorifying abortions and TikTok that were in the clinic. That's okay today. But for crying out loud, if I do a homosexual voice, you know what I mean?
I know, and it's never done.
And it's funny because people who are homosexual, gay men, and you do a voice like that around, they will just laugh, and it just cracks them up. They take no offense to it, but the straight white dude does, or the straight white, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
You know who enjoyed my voice impressions of black Americans? Enjoyed it the most? My black friends. Yeah. And I would say, it's not offensive. They're like, no, dog, you can do it pretty good. They encouraged me to do it. So I'm like, but you do it around anybody else, they're like, you need to stop.
It's so fragile now. I mean, when we have a top book in the nation being sold called White Fragility, it tells you the state of the nation we're in.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Freaks of the Vine, guys. We're in a really funny time of our culture and society, and you know what, though? We're going to talk about some things tonight, and we're going to talk about some deep, heavy subjects, and we're going to try to keep it as mild-mannered as possible, but I tell you what, some of these things tonight are not mild-mannered, and they really are attacking what we know. So we're going to jump on the first topic tonight. You guys ready? The Seven Mountains Prophecy, the Seven Mountain Mandate. We brought this up a couple weeks ago, a couple episodes ago. We talked about the dominionism. And the dominionists feel like they have to take over the culture from a Christian standpoint. I want to explain the Seven Mountain Mandate a little bit further because we didn't really get into that as much. And so I want to share some things with you guys, okay? Now, there's a plan to seize control of every aspect of the United States, and it's based on the book of Revelation. So the argument goes something like this. The long-awaited second coming has not yet happened, as the criteria outlined in the Bible have yet to be met. So Christians have not been taking part in their communities. Instead, they've been huddled in their own churches, and this has exposed the very pillars of society susceptible to the influence of the devil. It's up to believers to change this, they argue, by seizing control of key institutions. So some evangelical movements believe this is demanded by prophecy. They quote Isaiah 2:23, which states this, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it." The view argues that there are seven such mountains of the Lord, quote unquote. Okay? The key to this thinking comes from Revelation 17, 1 through 18. We are only going to read one verse because it all hinges on number 9. And here is the mind with which hath wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains. Okay, so this prophetic passage talks about the evil woman drunken with the blood of the saints who rides a beast of 7 heads and 10 horns. And it ends telling how the beast will be turned against the woman, destroying her. Most theologians see the reference to 7 as being Rome because Rome is famously built on 7 hills. But some evangelicals argue that this beast that its 7 heads are the mountains represents the structure of society itself. So you got, before I tell you the 7, you got BLM and other Marxist organizations arguing on behalf of a takeover of the culture. And then you have the super uber religious furthest right clamoring for a takeover. When Jesus says, I will come when I'm ready, when the Father sends me. So it has no bearing on whether or not we take over a culture. And this is crazy. Okay, so this is called the 7 Mountain Prophecy. And this is where David Barton is a famous evangelical quote, if you're going to establish God's kingdom, you have to have these 7 mountains. And again, that's family, religion, the education, media, entertainment, business or economy, and government, end quote. Zach, who is David Barton?
He is a evangelical Christian political activist and author. He is the founder of Wall Builders, an organization that promotes pseudo-history, which is about the religious basis of the United States. He's been described as a Christian nationalist. His work is devoted to advancing the idea that the United States was founded as explicitly Christian and rejecting the consensus view that the United States Constitution calls for separation of church and state.
Okay. Could you look up, please, one thing, Gage? Could you just have a look at David Barton's, this is just curiosity, I did no homework on this one beforehand, don't need to. David Barton's role with or experience with Worldview Weekend. Okay, because David Barton has been like, I know I've seen him on the DVDs that Worldview Weekend puts out. So I know he's been there before. He's always been like a, the Christianity founding of America. Not disagreeing with some of the things he's done in the past, but did you put that in and it just synonymously popped some things up or no?
Yeah.
Okay, it did. So you remember how we talked about the dominionism a couple podcasts ago? Like I said, Dominionist thinking is becoming mainstream among this minority group, and 7 Mountains is regarded as a roadmap to regain control of the country. So basically, this started, you guys, back in the 70s. All right? And then it really gained steam when Ronald Reagan won the election. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's picked back up when Trump won. And I don't know, I think they're running for the hills now, no pun intended, after he didn't win. Because this kind of blows up in the face of the ability to have the 7 Mountain Mandate.
Yeah.
Why do we want to think that we have to take control of these things in society and government, you guys?
Why? I don't know why people think like this, but like you said, that we have both sides now. I mean, I wasn't too familiar with that 7 Mountain Mandate, but seeing both sides of the extreme on, wanting to take over with BLM and then wanting to take over with this, it's pretty interesting stuff.
That's why you have so many people in the middle going, you all are nuts. You all are nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, because you kind of look at this and then see where people, if you're far left or right on these kind of points, you look at the middle and you're like, these people are just as crazy because they don't believe what I believe in.
Yeah.
And that's...
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Matthew McConaughey is getting steam in the political realm right now. He's
the voice of reason.
He's just steamrolling along in Texas as a political voice. And I listened to a comment that he made. This is I think this is pre-election, so back in the fall. And he just made a comment about how he's treading the middle of the road. He likes to think that he's independent, wants to be able to think logically, hear both sides' points and make a adult decision based on your own moral values. And a Texan, classic cowboy was just giving him hell, saying, "Connie, what the heck you do in the middle of the road? The only thing in the middle of the road are yellow lines and dead armadillos. You're going to get hit." And doing the whole analogy to traffic, and Connie said it beautifully. He said, typically you'd be right, but the problem is that you all are so far on either side, you can walk right down the middle of the road and have no worry about getting hit right now.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
It's one extreme or the other. And if you don't align with one way, you know, and it's easy to pick sides because you look on one side and you go, oh, that I don't agree with that whatsoever, so I better go to where the other side is.
Complete opposite.
Right.
Yep.
You know, have you ever heard
both sides, left, right, up, down, center, it doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat, extremism on anything is never a good idea.
We have talked about it before in this program.
Yeah.
About we're conservative, voting moderate. I vote in the middle of the road, which typically means that I'm always going to vote conservatively. I try to maintain a middle of the road so that I can kind of, because if you know, it's not a problem with affiliating with one party or the other, but they're both so flawed in certain ways. It's like,
that's the biggest problem I have is that one side points fingers and says, you do this, and you do this. And they're literally standing naked in a glass house tossing stones.
Yep. You're exactly right.
Yeah, you are just as bad on your side. And okay, yeah, maybe apples to oranges we're going to put up, you know, like in war. Oh, well, you killed 10 civilians. Yeah, well, you killed 10, diplomats. You know, it's still a life. It's still people.
Absolutely.
Dying.
Yep.
You know, like there's no sin is sin. Extremism is extremism. And just because you're doing it to justify your Democrat or Republican agenda doesn't make it right.
Denzel Washington has always classically been known as a conservative, a black actor, conservative, and he won't talk about it. He tries to get pigeonholed a lot by
He gets cornered all
by the media. They're like, "Who did you vote for?" And he's like, "None of your business." But here's something to think about when we talk about. If I'm trying to, as a pastor, first of all, as a Christian, happen to be a pastor, if I'm trying to engage the lost, am I going to engage somebody who is siding with liberalism or the Democratic Party by trumpeting that I am a right-wing, gun-toting Republican? I'm going to alienate them. Why? Because I believe that way? Well, maybe I do. Maybe I do hold to that. But I'm not going to be able to engage them in a conversation because they immediately put up a wall. My job is not to appease the culture. My job is to preach the gospel message. My job is to disciple make those who come forward after the lost souls repent and believe. That's my job. My job is not to hold to a political party. And so many evangelicals feel like they have to make sure that everybody knows that they're a Republican.
Because politics take what as Christians we're supposed to and they put it in categories on their side. Mm-hmm. You hold to the standard of the biblical principle of not killing an infant in the womb. Okay, well then you have to be Republican. Because if you are a liberal or a Democrat, then by osmosis you support abortion. That's why a lot of people say you can't be both Christian and Democrat because it's mutually exclusive.
That's what people say.
And they do, and that's where the fights lie. That doesn't... We can get into that all day. As Christians, we are supposed to have a say in our government as a republic, especially in America, and we dictate the say in our government by the ultimate law.
But we are in a culture where we are more identified by what political party we belong to and what president we want to vote for.
Absolutely,
more
that's
than
the point
we do
I'm making.
Our allegiance to Christ.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Right? They're extracting these traits from Christians and putting it in one political party and saying, well, if you're Christian, then you must be a Republican.
Absolutely.
Which to some, do Republicans line up on the sides of anti-abortion and this, that, and the other?
More times than not.
More times than not, yes, they do.
Well, let me bring up a point, son, really quickly. We were just looking at a video of this. It is well known that Biden made a comment no more than 10 years ago that marriage consists and should only consist of a man and a woman. And former President Trump was waving the rainbow flag right after his election.
We have to stop the persecution from overseas, especially, not even domestically. He's saying overseas, especially in the attacks on the American LGBTQ population.
Yeah.
Trump is supporting the homosexual
Well, now, and Biden now has switched because it's not popular to his party.
Right, but Biden in that same way is going. He's being asked about, about the marriage bill and whether or not, marriage should be inclusive for gay couples. And Biden straight up is just down. He's like, the world's going to Hades in a handbasket, and we got more important things to worry about. Instead, let the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman be a man and a woman and move on. That's Joe Biden, the leader of the free world right now, who represents the party who is completely against that idea. What is going on in this twilight zone?
It is shifting your ideology to appease the culture of the influence of the people that you want to side with. We're not even bringing up homosexuality. That's not the point. The point is, as soon as you pledge allegiance to another human being who you believe represents you 100%, you will find flawed humanity in that person.
Okay, so why do we ignore this? Why are we so blind to the fact that they flip-flop? I mean, we hold each other as citizens in contempt because we don't align with each other's political views.
I'll tell you why. Because
but we'll seriously listen to these guys, these figureheads, and they flip-flop and say one thing 10 years ago and then say another thing now, and we just don't care. Just let them go. Just let them get away with it.
Because we are from a from a Christianity standpoint, we have to make sure that we understand that, like, let's say somebody comes into the church and they are a known felon. And we're going to be, wow, we have to be careful about it. What do we allow this person to do? No, that's not what the Bible tells us. The woman at the well was a perfect example of that, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus is knows who she is. She's very flawed, outcast, and then here's a leader of the free world and Nicodemus in the chapter before in the book of John, and wanting all the, the ways to know how to get to heaven. The point is that we are to love everybody who they are, no matter what they have done, especially they've repented and believed, because they are now a brother and sister in Christ. They are one of his elect. We are to help shepherd them. For some reason, we are more willing to stand at the door with a baseball bat and not let the felon in the door, but we are so quick to just let go of whatever president that we really want to hold on to, because we like 80% of what they say and do. We'll let the 20% that completely goes against our moral fiber slide because the 80% outweighs the 20%. And that's what drives me nuts about politics and politicians. And one of them that stands for something that actually is biblical ever gets elected anymore anyway, half the time because they're not popular.
Yep.
They get asked the question, well, where are you at on abortion? Where are you at on gay rights? Where are you at on these things? Oh, how about this? Why does that have to matter so much? It does. And I'm not saying these things don't matter. Right? But they're the lead.
Because they dictate your free will as a person, and anything that infringes your own free will is not cool. But
do you agree what I said about the felon and all that? I mean, you guys see what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever heard of an evangelist named Lance Wallnau? Well, him and Mr. Barton. Wallnau is one of the theology's most vocal prophets of this Seven Mountain Mandate, and he is a forceful advocate, okay? He had declared Trump as the Cyrus anointing upon him. King Cyrus of Persia signed a decree to allow the Jewish people to come back into their land, many, many hundreds of years ago, well before, Christ was born. God moved through Cyrus to make this decree to allow them to come back into the land. And so somehow, though, they call him in this. I don't know. The point is, and we're going to start getting more into the political part of this, but I'm going to ask you this. Wallnau asserts that Satan is in control of academia, entertainment, politics, and business. And he says, quote, our real enemies are the ones that are shaping laws, shaping media, and shaping the next generation. Don't disagree with that. But why do you have to? It doesn't mean that we don't stand up for things that we believe in the political realm. It doesn't mean that we lay over and let people walk over us. Absolutely not. Right? And there's a God's providence, God's will being done thing that we always want to refer back to. And I completely agree with this. I'm a God's sovereignty standard. But I'm still going to vote for who I want to vote for. I'm still going to preach the gospel message and do the best I can in my section. We're not supposed to lay over and take it. Well, there it is. There's our take. How about them apples? All right. Hey, Kay, before we get into a really bad topic, why don't you share with us something nice?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, because we're gonna get really gnarly here in a minute. Go for it.
Okay, well, I got a newscast from last week on Tebow. So, you guys know Tim Tebow.
Well aware of Mr. Tim Tebow.
Yes.
Heisman Trophy winner the year I graduated high school, I believe.
Yeah, 2009. You're right.
Yeah, that's what I've got down here. You're absolutely correct. So this article came out last week, and he's on a mission to fight for what is right. Tim's on a mission to protect the gift of life. And so God opened his eyes to Christian celebrities for the evil that exists around the world, which his foundation, Tebow Foundation, is basically now getting into the whole human trafficking part.
That's great.
And so he said he got a call. His dad was over in a remote country, and he was at a underground pastors conference. And he got a call from his dad, and his dad was basically telling him that he just bought 4 girls that were in this country that were down the road from him. He said, I took $1,200 out of my pocket to purchase these 4 girls because I knew whoever was going to purchase them was not going to be good.
Take care of them.
Yeah. So Tim knew then that God had a new mission for him. So now they're into this and trying to raise up money for
That's awesome.
The human trafficking.
Great foundation.
Yeah.
Right on.
And so it's actually not just third world countries, but here as well.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty amazing. I'm really happy for the guy. He might actually have a shot at becoming the next tight end for.
Please God, no. Oh yeah, Urban Meyer picked him up, signed him to Jacksonville's. Dude, he has the little hurrah with Denver.
Yeah.
And then gets out of football and then tries to become a professional baseball player. Mm-hmm. Ends up getting to AAA with the New York Mets. And then fizzled out. Didn't do anything. And Urban Meyer walks into Jacksonville and calls his old buddy Tim up. Says, you want a job playing? Like, what? Come on.
You're telling me there's
like,
a chance.
Like Brett Favre coming back, It's like, okay, not quite that bad. But no, I'm good for Tim. If anyone deserves it, he does. He's one of the most. I remember in high school, Tebow mania was a real thing. He was everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, you couldn't flip on any news sports talk show and not see 15 from Florida, being advertised in some regard. But what I was really impressed with is that as a 19, 20-year-old being just fearless for his love for God. Just absolute, just didn't care. Just took it on. And, he got he still has a lot of crap thrown at him, like the whole, when he would kneel down on a knee, to give thanks. That was called, doing the Tebow. Everybody would do the Tebow. It's just a shot towards him. But it was an honest to God thing. And the thing that really caught me off guard with him was it was a commercial, and a mom or this lady sitting on a couch, and she's talking about how she's glad she didn't go through with what could have been the worst decision of her life, and it could have destroyed everything around her. And the camera zooms out, and this guy standing, and it's Tim Tebow, and he puts his hand on her shoulder and says, "Thanks, Mom."
Yeah, for not aborting him.
Because she was like, she was being offered money to carry the abortion out, and something just told her to keep the kid. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and then look at him now, saving kids off the street from being sexually, slaved owned. And, Yeah, man, good on him. I hope this works out for him. But you know, it even doesn't matter if his football career works out or not. I mean, I think the guy would use the money for is to help his trafficking.
Probably donate it to
foundation.
charity.
Yeah.
His foundation
Seriously.
means a lot.
The only reason why he's playing football is because he has a legitimate burning desire and love for the game.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, yeah, I would too. All right, so thank you, Kate, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. It's nice, good little news nugget. All right, guys, I'm going to jump into one more topic tonight, and want to address this. Over the last few years, you have heard some what's called CRT, or critical race theory, and we got a letter. Well, we got an email to us, and Gage, would you kind of bring up some of this, and then here in a moment. So what you guys need to understand is the critical race theory is basically centering everything that we know and founded in this country on racism. And
America was bought
it was
by the
bought.
blood of non-white people.
Yeah.
We built it on the inequities of slaves, and
Yeah.
yeah,
No doubt there's a stain there. But it wasn't everybody. I mean, I think we continually want to forget.
Oh, slavery!
That there was
no doubt.
No doubt. Slavery was awful.
Is a very scarred, flesh wound to America's history. No doubt. Show me a country, a major world country, who doesn't have some sort of history of slavery.
Yeah, there are active countries now with slavery we don't want to talk about. How about
in our own country with children? And politicians and people who have money and power in this world are involved. And because they're in part of this elite, disgusting cult secret society and have that Frank Costello from The Departed FBI informant protection for whatever reason, never have anything happen to them. Yeah. We sell and trade little girls in this country still to this day as slaves. And we would rather fight an invisible enemy, the cootie bug, than actually focus our attention, resources, and effort on stopping things that matter. Mm-hmm. Slavery is still going on.
Absolutely, it is.
And in Africa, the Egyptians enslaved the Hebrews, who built the pyramids
for 400 years.
Who built everything that Pharaoh owned. Mm-hmm. The Hebrew slaves did. Japanese slaves, the samurai, were the Mongolians. Yeah. With the Chinese population. I mean, the slavery it's not justifying it. But slavery is a part of human history. It shows how disgusting man is. I have power. You're feeble. I'm going to pull this trip and manipulate you doing all this work for me. You serve me, and you going to bow down to it. So let's have a philosophical discussion about how a human can come into that, force into submission. That's the only reason why we succumbed to. They succumbed into it. They couldn't fight back.
Right.
You either work or you die.
I think the beautiful analogy that Christ uses through Paul is talking about in Christ there's no more slave nor free.
When the Bible talked about slavery, like it states so much in Christ, people will spurn that and saying that the Bible justifies slavery.
They don't even spend any time reading it. No. They read one verse, they take it out of context, they don't understand it, did not. Right. And there's something else. We also, if we forget this. How much blood was spilled on the soil of the United States of America in the Civil War when brother against brother were fighting in order for the freedom of black slaves.
We don't want to talk about that.
We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the fact that there was a president, one of the most amazing men ever, that founded the actual Republican Party, and that was a party founded to be able to abolish slavery, which nobody remembers that, Abraham Lincoln. And I'm not making appeal for the current Republican Party. I'm just telling you factual, historical facts about where it was founded.
The man who
Abraham Lincoln
motioned the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes.
This is the same man who funded then a party known as the Republican Party to go, okay, every man is created equally in the image of God. This is how we do this now.
And you're not going to switch the mindset of people who were slave owners.
No, and in that time, how long did it take for word that there was this party to extend to the far corners of this country?
Well, it took over 100 years, and we were still at the point where we had
still building a railroad.
We were still 100 years after the Civil War. We had color and white only water fountains, right?
Yeah.
And we were.
My elementary school that I went to was a segregated school. Longren Elementary. It was well known. It was a segregated elementary school.
Yes, it was.
That's why when segregation was abolished and everybody was allowed to go to school together, that place was a little gym because, and in this part of the country, we are so magnified because Brown versus Board was down the street.
In our city.
In our backyard. And that dictated statutorily, legislated federally across this nation that, no, we go to school together.
Wherever you live.
We work together. We can live together. There's no more of this, okay, if you're black or darker skinned, you're over there, and the whites are over here. There's no more for that.
You can't... Now, listen, let me say this to you.
Even though segregation was established, there were a lot of people who still didn't agree with it.
They're never going to agree with it. There's some people who
No. I mean, like, the white... Like, you think in the segregation, like, all the white kids were probably looking down on... No, there were still a lot of families with moms and dads who served with them in World War II, or World War One. They served in the military and shed blood with black brothers, so they knew when they no, you treat them like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Segregation wasn't just widely adopted by everybody. Now it was very prevalent, absolutely, especially in the southern states. Kansas isn't southern, but there's still a lot of that backwoods racist crap you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I don't remember what I was going to say a moment ago, but I think the point you're making is absolutely understood, that we are never going to overcome stereotypes.
No.
People are going to have stereotypes. If you see...
The more we can just laugh it off.
I know. But if you can see like a Ford truck rolling up with the rebel flag, there ain't anybody in that parking lot, black, white, Mexican, that doesn't look at that guy and say, what?
Hillbilly.
Redneck. Exactly.
Redneck, hillbilly. Country,
it's just it's a stereotype.
Whatever. Absolutely.
So we're always going to have stereotypes of people, of other human beings. We do it all the time. Yeah. I can't... Oh, man. And so critical race theory, however... is this brainwashing tool and mechanism that is beginning to infiltrate. Would you please share some of this email? And then I think, Mr. Zach, you have something to share as well. Please go for it.
Yeah. So they wanted us to bring up the CRT being taught in the schools. And they also wanted us to talk about this 1619 project. And I wasn't too familiar with the 1619 project, but it's been around for a while. New York Times wrote this article. It received a Pulitzer Prize, I think is what it was, for best commentary. But anyways, what it is it's stating that America wasn't founded in 1776. It wasn't founded because we were trying to split from England, right? It was founded when the first black slave came to America. That's when it should have started. So that's a 1619 project. Basically,
to establish and define that America was established as a country on the basis of owning a black slave.
Yep.
Okay.
Nothing to do with...
This wasn't America separating themselves from the tyranny and the oppression of the royal empire that was England, that at one point... What was the saying? At one point, the English Empire... was so vast that the sun never set on the English Empire because they had territory that expanded across the world that much. So you got London, or not London, England, right? Everyone think of the globe. They owned territory all over the world so vast that in theory the sun never actually settled on the English Empire.
It was always... The sun is always shining
because
and at some point
all over the world it's on a territory so instead of saying that this country that we live in was established from revolting against that,
right?
No, we are going to define it on the basis of slavery now because can I play this?
I'd love you to play it.
This is Mr. Voddie Baucham,
greatest preacher of our time.
Phenomenal, to say the least. Prayers be with him and his family. Absolutely, right now he's going through everything. The channel is the Gospel of Christ on YouTube, and the video is 16 minutes and 12 seconds long. It is titled Critical Race Theory. It says everything is racist. Voddie Baucham at Flat Creek Baptist Church.
We'll play a short clip of this for you
I
guys.
highly recommend you searching for this clip, spending 16 minutes and listening to it in its entirety.
We could
because
probably attach the link on the
you
bottom of our...
will
Yep.
do nothing but come
episode.
away just more educated and understanding.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to play probably about a minute of this, but
Okay.
we'll start it now.
Okay.
Have to ask whether racism occurred. You ask how racism manifested itself here. Because we assume that it occurred. Why? Everything is racist. Everything. By the way, this is what the 1619 Project is all about. Listen, if America is founded in 1776, then we're founded on the principles of the Declaration of Independence, right? Or let's say, you want to just be technical about it. And you say, okay, I get that, but really, really, really technically, we're founded in 1787. Because that's, Constitution, ratification, right? 1787. Cool, fine. Now it's the Constitution. So either 1776, Declaration of Independence, or 1787, Declaration of Independence and Constitution. Either way, right? Either way, we've got some documents that say to us, this is what America is. 1619 Project says, no. America's established 1619. Why 1619? I'm glad you asked. Because according to the authors of this Pulitzer Prize-winning project, that is some of the most horrible historiography you will ever find anywhere. 1619 is when the first black slaves came to America. You see, if America is defined by the first time black slaves come to our soil, then America is defined by racism. The 1619 Project is about the first premise of critical race theory. We must define America by racism. That is critical race theory. Number one, racism is normal. It is everywhere all the time. Everything is racist. Secondly,
All right, yeah. So there's a teaser for the secondly. Go listen to the rest of it. It's amazing. But,
Okay.
yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is.
1619 Project. I first heard about this in 2017, which is when I finished up college, and I thought it was a joke. I thought the professor bringing it up, like I caught, it wasn't eavesdropping, it was like, front of the class, there was a group of like 3 students and the professor having this conversation, and I overheard the second half of it, talking about how America was founded on the basis of slavery. I'm like, what? Because like someone's writing like a devil's advocate paper or something, like, no, this is a thing called the 1619, and I was at that point, it was like, wah, 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 wah.
Do yourself a favor and read the actual New York Times article and look at the fundamental principle problems of this thing. Modern critical theory. So here's the question. What is critical theory and what should Christians know about it?
Critical theory was taught to us in criminology.
Absolutely. And critical theory, critical thinking, critical theory, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a...
This is where this is get tricky, man. Because this is, you hear like
manipulate.
theories and critical theories and conflict theories and race theory. You hear all of these terms thrown around. Critical race theory is this entire upheaval and disgusting toxic cancer that is infiltrating everything, and it's being taught to children.
So first, with that said, not everything that critical theory affirms is false. Like almost any discipline, there are areas in which Christians should agree with critical theory. For example, critical race theorists affirm that race, as it has been defined historically and legally, is a social construct and not a concept legitimately rooted in human nature or human biology. Let's put it to you this way. Here's the critical theory of, or the critical thinking of the book of Genesis. We are all one race. The human race. So what difference does it make what color skin you have?
It would be one thing if we were born with our skin color and it was just, a body trait. Mm-hmm. Like color eyes, hair, whatever. Muscle mass, whatever it may be in the genetic DNA code. No, there's a chemical called melanin. By the way, the skin is the largest organ in the body. In case you didn't know that.
Yep.
the largest organ that covers us, which if you peel that layer off, no matter what color you are, we all look the exact same. This meaty, fleshy, muscly
If you
mass.
skinned 16 different ethnic groups,
We all look the exact
they all
same.
look the exact same. Imagine
That chemical, melanin, whether you got a lot or little, is completely dictating how we treat one another.
And if you have more melanin, you are darker skin color. If you have less
Yes, the
melanin,
more
you're lighter.
concentrated melanin you have, hence the term melanoma, skin cancer, melanin, chemical that makes that, that comes up with the pigment of your skin, white, black, brown, olive, doesn't matter.
Exactly. So here's what the modern critical theory views reality through a lens of power. Each individual is seen either as oppressed or as an oppressor, depending upon their race, class, gender, sexuality, and a number of other categories. Oppressed groups are subjugated not by physical force or even overt discrimination, but through the exercise of hegemonic power, the ability of dominant groups to impose their norms, values, and expectations on a society as a whole, relegating other groups to subordinate positions.
Basically saying that the idea of a mom, dad, structured household with kids is a white idea.
Right.
That's what it's saying. That's what it's trying to redefine.
This is how the Marxist organization called Black Lives Matter
That
was founded
Trees
by
Colors and whoever, I forget,
Yep.
always forget the other name.
that they literally put in. Now they have removed it since, but it's well documented. It was on their website
for a very long time.
for a very long time that they viewed the nuclear family, mom, dad, children, as the demon, whether or not whatever color you are. So the first attack was on the nuclear family, because if the mom can be single and have children and be married to the government, she can have whatever relationship she wants on the side, but as long as she's dependent upon the government, not a man, because that's let's not even get into the fact that moms began to workplace and all that stuff. That's not what we're getting at. The point is that it wasn't
we
a nuclear.
incentivize single motherhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we encourage the fact that if you detach from the male provider that is supposed to be the upstanding provider, the figurehead of the family home, if you don't even have to be loyal to him. You can have him give you what you have in the child. Bye-bye. Don't need you. Actually, no, I'm going to take half of everything you got and then suck on the teat of the government for the rest of their life. And they're going to provide to me because woe is me and I am a minority demographic group because I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm.
So Voddie Baucham,
disgusting.
Voddie Baucham,
because there are men out there who are trying.
right?
Who try. Yeah, there's a lot of deadbeat dads out there. A lot of guys who should not have participated in the act of sexual reproduction. I'm not debating that. But there are a lot of good men out there who try to be a dad, who try to provide, who try to give, baby mama and the kids what they deserve. And I don't want it.
But let's go back to the actual formulation of God. Now let's look at this for a moment. Biblically, you have a husband or a dad, a mom, wife, right? The Bible is very distinctively clear. One man, one woman. You get together, you procreate. That's what sex is for, is to produce children. This is the nuclear family of which the Bible has instituted. This is what God has put together. And what God has put together, let no man put asunder, according to the book of Matthew.
Well, look at how the Bible lays out how Christ feels about his church.
Right. Okay, so that's where I was
It's a
going.
husband and wife relationship.
So 1 Corinthians 13 is what we call the love chapter. Mm-hmm. I say it every time I do a wedding.
Yeah.
Now, here's the point. I'll read some of it here in a moment. While one of you is talking, I'll pull it up and I will throw this in a moment. But here's the point of it. I tell every couple that I'm counseling together, which I will only officiate man and woman couple, because I am a proponent of the biblical text and I will not appease the culture and the story.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I will tell them, sir, you are to love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. You better learn how to do it, and you better do it the best you can. Because by loving God first, he will create in you a clean heart and at least work on you. You will be flawed man, but you will at least be attempting to be the best man you can. That makes you, honestly, way more attractive to her because you a man after God's own heart. She gonna love that. Now, I tell the woman, I say, now, young lady, you are to love God equally as with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. Because when you love God first, then you will be able to love him the way it's supposed to be. God created an order of things. The man cannot do things on his own as well as if he has a helper. If the helper is there to help him through that. Just because society has just wee-wee down their leg with this concept of because we don't have the Bible anywhere anymore. This is completely eradicated because we all know deadbeat dads, horrible guys who slept around, and women who, they demand what they're gonna want, and they wear the boots and the fan. We have this destruction of the nuclear family. So the cultural Marxist group of BLM comes in, riding on the heels of this fallen society that God put together, but we have just disseminated over the last 55, 65 years. And now here we go. They jump on it, but now they're attaching this thing called gender. So now you can be whatever you want because we live in a society now where a guy can identify as a woman, but then it claims to be a lesbian. So he's really a guy that likes women, but he doesn't like his own skin, so he wants to be a woman, but still likes women. The sexual immorality implication
Twitter
here.
banned a Spanish priest for saying that men can't get pregnant. Twitter.
What?
Banned a Spanish priest for saying that men can't get pregnant.
That's biology.
Yeah.
Not today.
I was going to say, isn't it true?
Yeah, he's not wrong.
No.
Whatever.
No, because a girl can be a guy, and because she's a guy, now she's a man. But since she's a man, even though she's got the part, she can, as a man, get pregnant because she. That's where we're at now. This all. Yeah, you're right with your tangent. Well said.
I'm blown away by where we are now. But
Before the BLM thing, though, it started to really. I'll blame it all on pornography. I will blame every bit of it
let's hear this.
on the absolute explosion of Hustler and Penthouse. And yeah,
Okay, let's hear it.
because with what is pornography? Pornography is the out to get the sexual gratification without participating in sex. Whether, you're just a lonely single person, if you're, coming into your own, whatever the case may be, pornography hits a demographic whether you're male or female. Men and women alike, it's not just guys, women as well, can have serious addiction problems with pornography. What pornography subliminally teaches you is to have your own desires come to fruition. No matter how freakish, no matter how perverted, there is a corner market for what you like. So, what is sin? Sin is created by man's own desire. Now we're taking this own desire and we're taking it to the one act that is set aside to rejuvenate our population. We're taking this procreation aspect of sexual reproduction to breed, to populate, and we're just going to totally turn it inside ourselves to make it as a personal gratification, and that's all that matters. So now we justify any and every disgusting sexual act as just, well, that's just them. That's just what makes them tick. Mm-hmm. That's just what makes them. So I bring all that up because in the typical nuclear family, if you have someone who comes out as homosexual, what happens? They get, not always, a lot of, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when this wasn't prevalent, you come out as gay, you get ousted. You get cast aside. Family doesn't want anything to do with you. So, what do? you go and you hitch on to the people who share your same inequities, the same type of people who have gone through what you do. It's a village mentality, right? Think of hippies in the flower power van.
Hippies.
Yeah, in the flower power van escapades in California, just on the side of the road. Hey man, let's go for a ride, and then you just hop into the van with a bunch of strangers. Why? Because you share the same exact lifestyle. That's something you have in common. So we have all of that, and then the AIDS pandemic that was absolute, just everywhere, and took the, you think COVID was everywhere. Wasn't alive for it the heyday, but you guys were. AIDS was huge. So you have all of that, revolution, the sexual revolution that comes out, and to essentially just let everyone's own freak flag fly. This has been years in the making.
Yeah.
I bring up the pornography thing now because now it's at the tip of everyone's fingers.
Well,
in 10 seconds, you can have whatever you want on the screen, right? And having your own village. You're telling these people who have literally their entire life have been bullied, have been different, have been just cast aside from society, and you have this organization that is like a predator like a lion stalking its prey in the tall grass, ready to pounce on your little bit of inhibition about yourself. Oh, you're going through that? You've been cast aside? Mommy didn't like what you... Why don't you come join us?
Yeah.
We got everything going over here. Now look at the absolute... We literally let a organization burn and terrorize and violently attack the innocent. And now we're letting people fly their colors because it's a sign of free speech. But they're the ones telling us that free speech isn't no free speech. This is absolutely... This is what Khrushchev or Kuzhinov or whatever the Russians said in the Cold War. We will defeat America without ever having to fire a shot.
Yep.
They have total... I don't know what they implanted, man, but we have just crumbled and absolutely decayed ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sorry, it took a while to spit out.
No, you're good.
But you see what I'm saying? Like the pornography revolution of just basically going, oh, sex isn't so private.
Yeah,
Sex can be public.
To that point, I remember Hardee's used to do commercials with hot girls on cars. You remember that?
My mom would... Yeah.
My mom was...
Yes.
Fastest finger in the world. Change the channel.
Every time.
But you look at other countries, they don't allow like explicit commercialing like that. You can't, like, sex doesn't sell anywhere else. They just allow it here.
Hold on.
That and
there
violence.
was a German car commercial.
Oh, there's a lot of
car
German
commercial where a boyfriend and girlfriend were in a car, and the girl goes to motion. You know what she's doing, and it shows her mouthing the gear shift, and he kind of looks at her like, "Hey, you missed." It's a German car commercial. It ran for over a year. It was the most popular commercial in 2006 and 2007.
Sex is completely...
No problem at all. Dude, it's provocative.
Because sex is so just cool in Germany. I hate to say the word cool, but it's just completely accepted.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have said other countries, but like I know in Africa, like a lot of these, I don't even know what you would call them, but like India, that doesn't fly. Or
it doesn't fly in Muslim
Europe,
renowned countries.
Europe is a sexual haven for the promiscuous. I mean, you have in Sweden, Norway, one of the Arctic countries up there, the news channels, newscasters, where they hire the gorgeous of the gorgeous females, and they start clothed, and they're doing the newscast, and by the end of it, they're completely nude. That's how they. And it's a fetish thing. It's a pay-per-view, and it is unbelievably huge.
If you don't realize how much exactly the Word of God instructs against this, Moses in writing the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Exodus, it is mentioned often. But listen to this. Listen to 1 Corinthians 6:18. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against their own body. It's a self-destructive medicine, sin, as you were just talking about. I love what you brought up about that, and I think that's something that we tie it. You can easily tie it to pornography. We made a comment a while back here in one of our episodes of Connect, our live stream service. It not 100% of people who look at porn or pedophiles. 100% of pedophiles are addicted in some way to porn.
Yeah.
That is a statistic, and you know what I did? I wrote down the statistic I found, and of course I didn't bring it in here with me, but I did find that is a law enforcement from the FBI statistic on their criminal profiling of pedophiles. That up until like 2004, there's a year that this was announced. Yeah. And 100% of all pedophiles have an addiction of some form to pornography or a liking to it. And
pornography is just completely manipulates and lies to you of what it is.
Yep.
You know, like for anyone who has had sex and has seen pornography, it's the same thing, but it couldn't be any more different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's sex in theory, but it's completely, absolutely 100% different. And the acceptance of just being able to go, okay, you two get naked, do this on camera. We're going to do these fetish things, whatever, because there's a corner of the market that'll pay top dollar for that kind of thing. And oh, no big deal. We'll put it on Google. We'll put it in where you just Google a couple keywords that have nothing to do with that, but because of the amount of pornography that's there,
yeah,
and your safe search isn't on,
absolutely,
you'll put a couple words in there, Google, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh,
yeah.
I see a lot of X's in that website. What in the heck? You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird.
Curtis had on our Connect. Curtis had a statistic of like how many hours or like how long it would take you per hour of porn uploaded to watch all of it. Do you remember?
Oh yeah,
like per hour of porn that was uploaded. I think it's like a year or something and a half. Like that's how much in 1 hour, a year and a half worth in terms of time.
Yeah, that's right.
Something like that.
It was an astronomical number.
That's absolutely insane.
Kay, I want to ask you something because these gentlemen are in their molecular 20s. We're a little bit older. Let's just for a moment so that they can kind of see an eye view. Tell me what you remember about the outlook or the availability of maybe of anything that was nasty like that. Okay, just what you can think of off the top of your head.
Hugh Hefner, Playboy Mansion. I mean, that was, I don't know, back in the 70s.
Sure.
Or maybe a little bit before that, early or late 60s.
Popularized them more in the 60s for sure, 70s, and then the 80s.
But porn was relegated when you guys had access to it. It was relegated to the dirty gas station or a shop.
Yeah.
That was strictly for that, right?
Right. Well, that's because the internet didn't exist. And
Correct.
so all you had were the magazines that were in.
But these magazines like Playboy and Hustler and whatever else weren't just put eye level for children in Walmart.
No.
So
right? They were supposed to be put above, away.
Upper rack, and they had a white sheath covering, a plastic covering, so you could only see the name. So all the magazines like Hustler and Playboy, Penthouse, you could only see the name of the title, and none of them could go above on the title with anything risque. So the white placard would protect or whatever color it was, and usually it was white because white is not an appealing color.
Right.
Okay. So appealing to the eye. So it would block out, and then that was the dirty magazine section, and it was watched over. Like it was right. The rack was right in front of the cosmetic counter where you always have somebody over there and get away from those crazy kids, right? Yeah. But okay, but Hugh Hefner. Now in terms of pornography, Playboy was not even a mention. Like they weren't sexually immoral compared to Larry Flint,
right,
and his kingdom of the most dirt. There are things that I saw in an early teenager in that realm. I should not have seen it. I did, and I can't forget it. That's how much of an imprint. Now,
you don't. Yeah, those aren't images that just slip your brain.
No,
not at all. So
yeah,
you have that. To the media, your medium of consuming it was in print. You had to go get it.
Correct.
If you weren't able to go get it, then you
stole it from somebody's
you stole
dad.
it from dad because he's because your buddy's dad's passed out by 8:00 with 6-pack and he's like, hey, come here, I got
right,
know where the stash is. So then, and that was the same way when I was in school, because I remember being in old school and the buddy going out, I found my dad's porn mags. All of us were like, that's funny, whatever. 2003. All right. Yeah, computers were out. Internet was definitely accessible. You could look at porn on the internet, but it wasn't like today. It was not like today. Let me finish by saying this. Okay. Not only has this absolute turnover of the availability become so prevalent, but it's the accessibility of anybody that can have it now. And from a very, very young age, we're giving kids access to this way, sticking a phone or a tablet or whatever in their face, a laptop. Kids are smart. Kids are very smart. And they're going to figure out how to use Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
And they're going to find something one day, and they're going to keep continuing to come back to it. And the amount of explicitly vile, disgusting, just filth that exists today, and it's justified because it's just a means of someone expressing themselves sexually. It's accepted, and it's ruining us.
Yep,
it is. We went a different direction, but I think we went a necessary direction.
I think so too.
And I think right now, we can talk about critical race theory at any point, and it's going to be something that's not going away.
No,
we're going to right. But I think this is good because I think
not going
away,
especially when you hear it in the news or whatever, and you're reading these stories about how in school we're making 7-year-olds, 7 and 8-year-olds apologize to their different colored classmates for being white and being oppressive.
That's okay. And listen, this is going to get to the point where we're going to be absolutely absolved of any real accountability to God, because all we're thinking we have to hold ourselves accountable to is what somebody else tells us in a human form. It's Jesus Christ is the only one to free you from any of this garbage, any bit of it. And you can't, guys, you cannot justify putting through a child through that. It's having a 7 or 8-year-old apologize to somebody of a separate skin color for apologizing for something. Listen, for something that you feel guilty about. So you're creating in them already an instinctive problem for that child.
You know what a child
and a
is?
hatred and an anger before that other person ever has a chance to live a life.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely right. A child is a blank, brand new 250 gigabyte flash drive.
Yep.
You as a parent are a mainframe computer full of information. Quit downloading your corrupted files on that flash drive.
Amen to that.
Yep.
Stop spewing all of your data, that your life experiences that are so messed up, and you're putting it into your kid.
You want an 8-year-old to apologize, an 8-year-old white kid to apologize to an 8-year-old black kid for being the color of the skin they are, is as sick as having a 5-year-old child be able to make up their mind, or the parent tell the child. Let's say they make up their mind. The child doesn't make up their mind about anything. No. That's a parent infringing their garbage on a child. So you're going to force a child to do something that's ridiculous anyway, that you have downloaded on them. You have to stand before God.
This irresponsibility of parenting comes from the fact that a lot of these kids growing up didn't have much, so they think in order to get back or to give back and to patch up the old wounds of the past is to instill upon their kids the things that they never have had, which to some point I can respect, but you're ruining the next generation of kids. These spoiled, ungrateful, foul-mouthed brats that I hear today, and it's people of my generation and of my age, and I want to slap a couple of you. What are you doing? If you aren't grown up enough to raise a child, not only look, I'm not saying perfect, man. I'm not saying drill sergeant Army, Marine Corps instructing, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, early to bed, early to rise. No. But for crying out loud, it's a child. You are an adult. You need to establish roles. And you need to have responsibility and be a parent.
How about
and not be their best friend.
Yeah, and not
you are mom, you are dad, you are not buddy. You can have a friendship with your parent or your child. That's so important to be able to do that.
How about teaching them to love Christ with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength?
God doesn't fit in that today.
They don't. They don't want to.
Because God dictates rules. God instills law. We have no time for that law anymore. We're told by just sublimation of today's standards and the availability of information and technology, whatever, that I'm going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it, and you're going to have to be okay with it.
We're going to have to do another episode on this critical race theory, and we're just going to have to examine it more. But we're going to have
how the critical race theory is intertwined with homosexuality.
Yep.
Yeah. It's propagated by it.
Because it's trying to say that everyone who has marginalized issues to revolt and come up together, but there's straight black people going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The racist things that I go through and maybe endure or have experienced have nothing to do with your gay propaganda rhetoric.
I was a 6-year-old at Jefferson Elementary School in Riverside, California. I had a little black friend, and he came over to my house one time after school, played. My mom took him back home. My mom asked him if he'd like to stay for supper. He said yes, so she fed us and then took him home, walked him up to the door, and okay, and made sure that Mom knew that he was okay. And she had called. She got his phone number, called and said, hey, he's okay. He's over here. It was good. Okay. Really cool. We appreciated that. Another friend of mine, he was another little black friend of mine. It was in a very diverse neighborhood. She lived a couple houses down from Tanner. Jerome had me come over, and his mom, I walked over there, and he was going to McDonald's that day. Okay, walked up, and I said, he goes, Mom, this is my friend Patrick. Can we take him to McDonald's too? I ain't having no white ass, little punk ass, I'm not even kidding me, berated me. Now this young man's mom did not like little white kids. The one 2 doors down couldn't thank my mom enough. Does this have to do with the skin color of the person? No, it's the stereotype in which each different human being had.
Replace that with a white woman.
Right.
It's the same thing.
So
it happens on both sides.
Well, you have one white mom that would look at it, oh hi, come on in, and you have another one like, I'm not having this little black kid in my house. It doesn't make a difference what color is offensive to the other. It happens all the time, no matter what color skin you got.
And I guarantee you that if that white person was black or if that black person was white, they'd still have the same heart.
Yeah, but where does this hatred and anger and all that come from?
It comes from
Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
it comes from the father of lies to instill in them that we have to lash out and take out our shortcomings and our tribulations is whatever we went through as a child, whether we got molested, whether we got abused, whether we grew up and we just have this chip on our shoulder and now I got to take it out on you.
I don't know.
Or take it out at the waitress. Or take it out at the guy bagging my groceries because you know what I mean? Like it's anger, it boils and it festers, and they just look for avenues and outlets to let it spew out upon.
We have talked before, many episodes ago. We shared some things that we've all kind of been through as far as some of these things growing up. And let's just say this: if you haven't you can go back and listen to any of the early episodes of Freaks of the Vine. We welcome you to do that. Zach, you'd shared some things. I think Gage, you had done. I had done too, and I know KU had. So let's just put it out there like this: no matter what your experience is of whatever anybody has ever treated you wrong, there's only one person who can free you of this mentality. I don't hold anybody. I don't hold the black mom who smarted off and didn't want me in that car of hers. I don't blame her any more than I do anybody else who's ever done me wrong. I'm just sharing with you that it happened to me. 6-year-old kid, I was devastated. Went home, talked to my mom. My mom was like, well, there's people that just don't like you and I, and we have to move on with them. My mom did a great job of explaining it. So the next time I hung out with Tanner, I was never going to hang out with Jerome's mom again, but it's cool. We were cool, you know? Okay, so we move on in our lives, and here's the thing. Jesus Christ died he died on the cross as a propitiation for all sin, for all mankind. Guys, we know I'm not going to be throwing this out there, but we're in the last hours, man. Our society as a whole, with everything, the escalation of the sexual morality and the pornography, as Zach alluded to, and the way it's permeated our culture, and the way that our culture, every country, everywhere, is just turning a back against God. We know that we're in the last hours. We know we've been there for a while, but these things are escalating. Do you get concerned and worried about it? Well, sure you can. Well, what do you do about it? Stand up for what's right. Stand up for the truth. Right? Stand up for the truth.
Amen.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us on Freaks of the Vine tonight. There's been a lot of laughter the last couple of episodes, not so much tonight, but we had to talk about these things. We said we were going to, and these are no laughing matters. Sometimes we'll enjoy our talks. I enjoyed our conversation very much. I just don't enjoy some of the heaviness that's in our culture and our society around us. It sucks. There's just no way around it,
Yeah.
But we have hope in Christ, and so don't forget it. Well, as we close with this prayer. God, thanks for bringing us together. We pray for anybody here tonight that is listening to this podcast at any time, that they would be blessed to know that you died on the cross and rose again for all of our sins. So whatever we've been through, whatever we've experienced, that matters not, because all of that is forgiveness through your propitiation for us. You atoned for us. You sacrificed for us, and you are victorious for us. So we forgive everyone who's ever wronged us. That's what we have to do. But we can't live in yesterday. We have to only do what we can to love you above all things. And we ask that everybody listening does the same thing. And it's in your precious name we pray. Amen. All right, for Zach, for Kay, for Gage, thank you for joining us tonight for Freaks of the Vine. Again, you can email us anytime at
freaksofthevine@gmail.com.
All right, we will. It'll be a few weeks before our next episode, and we will hope to release one soon enough. Maybe a best of, so you can go back and listen to highlights or some of our favorite highlights over the last several months. So thanks for joining us tonight, and for all of us, we bid you adieu. God bless you guys, and remember, stay in the Word of God. That is the freedom in which you can find away from all this, escape from all this garbage. Until then, out!